Welcome to Psychic Bent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic.
Welcome back, listeners, to Psychic Bent. Today we're going to be discussing the difference between psychic and a medium. I have many questions on this myself, so the research I did was very enlightening. And Carrie, why don't you start us off on this?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people really don't understand that there is a difference between being psychic and being a psychic medium.
I know. I was one of them.
This is complicated by the fact that mediums are psychic, but some psychics are mediums, and many people offer both psychic and mediumship readings sometimes at the same time. A psychic uses their intuition to receive information about someone's past, present, future, or all three. They may do this by reading the sitter's energy field, connecting with their own or the sitter's spirit guides or higher self, or connecting with universal source. Sometimes they use tarot cards, runes, or other tools, or employ alternate methods of divining information such as scrying or astrology. They might just know things. Psychic readings may offer guidance, inspiration, a fresh perspective, or strategies for dealing with challenges. A medium connects with the sitter's recognizable loved ones in spirit and gives enough detailed evidence to demonstrate that they're really linked with a specific individual. It's all about communicating with the dead, who aren't really dead as demonstrated by mediumship. Mediumship doesn't involve predictions or analyses of one's careers, finances, or love life. The intention of mediumship is to let the sitter know that their deceased loved ones are still a part of their lives, provide closure and bereavement support, and diminish fear of death. Loved ones in spirit may offer messages of love, support, and healing, or specific information understood only by the sitter. Mediums use psychic ability to connect with those spirits, so yes, mediums are psychic. Many mediums offer psychic readings in addition to mediumship, and some have a wider definition of mediumship than I do. For example, I don't consider working with angels, connecting with spirit guides, and describing power animals or channeling messages from extra-dimensional entities to be mediumship.
Oh, so what would you consider those? Just your team?
Mediumship to me, because I mean, as a psychic, you're working with angels. You're working with your spirit guides. You know what I'm saying? You're already doing that.
Gotcha.
And this is just Carrie. It can vary from different people, have different ideas of this. But to me, a medium is going to talk to the deceased. And sometimes they can channel through you as a medium. You can channel someone through you. But to me, that's the main thing that a medium does is they do speak to the dead. They don't offer you, like when you go to a psychic reading and you want to know about your love life, that's kind of predicting the future, and that's where a psychic does that. But if you're doing mediumship work, you're basically working with the past and the present. Right, there's no future.
Right.
Because your deceased loved one wants to give you a message. They want to communicate with you. They want to give you comfort and where you're going. And so that's where I kind of believe this. For mediumship is you're basically talking to the past. You're talking to the entity, the person who has transitioned. But it's all about, basically you're counseling someone who's going through grief or has questions that they need to have answered by someone who was very close to them and passed.
Well, you could be providing counseling both ways.
Exactly, you could. But a lot of people go to a psychic for predictions. They want to know, should I move to Colorado for this job? They want to know, is my Mr. Right out there? I mean, those are common things people want to know when they want a psychic reading. Am I on the right path? Am I doing... And whereas if you're doing mediumship, and again, like we said, psychics... A medium can be psychic, but a psychic doesn't necessarily can be a medium.
Can they develop that, or are they?
From my understanding,
are they just extra?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, from my understanding, and I'm open for debate on this one because, our sister is a practicing psychic medium, and she she does communicate with the dead. I have on occasion communicated with the dead. So that means that I have mediumship skills. I can, if I work on that, I can go with that. But if you're a psychic and you're not actually communicating with anyone deceased, you're communicating through your spirit team, then you may not be a medium or have the capability of becoming a medium.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
so
makes sense.
Kim, do you talk to dead people? Not that you don't want to talk to dead people. Have dead people approached you?
Yes, they have. Yeah. As we've discussed, I would been touched and they talk.
Yes. So to me, that if you have dead people that are communicating with you easily, then I would say you have mediumship abilities. If you're a psychic and you're communicating basically through your spirit guides and your intuition, and you're using your psychic toolbox, so to speak, with oracle cards and tarot and the different divining instruments, and that's solely what you do, then you're more than likely not a mediumship. Now, having said that, there's that fear factor too.
Yeah, because
some people don't want to be a medium,
right? And they're afraid of being,
because it's the unknown.
Right.
So there's a possibility that you are a medium in the closet with your psychic abilities. It's I think there's that possibility as well. So, I mean, that's just, how I feel how it works out. Psychics and mediums, they've existed throughout history. Ancient Egyptians started astrologically charting in 3100 BCE, and ancient shamans used psychic abilities to cast spells, foretell events, and heal others. What these ancient supernatural beings have in common is they had manifestation of paranormal sensitivity, whether hearing voices or seeing visions, like modern psychics and mediums. A psychic, a medium, a psychic medium, those two terms are often misconstrued and used interchangeably. However, a psychic is not the same as a medium. Understanding the difference and when each term can be tricky, but it helps you to understand the definition of each term.
During my research, I found there are 11 signs you could be a medium, and I thought I'd go ahead and share those because we always find those interesting. So the first one is you have seen one or more deceased family members.
Yep.
Okay, I've done that.
Yep.
All right. You see shadows, blinking lights, or strongly sense an invisible presence.
Yeah.
Third one is you had an imaginary friend. Yes. This one's you. You had an imaginary friend or group of imaginary friends as a child. They would talk with you and play with you. They felt as real to you as your physical friends.
Well, they were. They were good friends.
Yeah, they were friends.
They were
exactly.
friends.
Exactly.
Don't judge.
No judge. No judge. Okay,
But
number
don't you
4,
think
you just know.
Don't you think? Well, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm sorry. Don't you think that's also the same for psychics, though? I mean, I know it's psychic medium, but okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, because mediums have the psychic abilities as well, so that would make sense.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Never mind.
So number 4, you just know things about people, even those you've never met who have passed. You feel like someone is watching you. Wherever you go, you feel like a presence is always with you, aware of what you are doing. This is like someone from the other side trying to get your attention. It can also be your guide. Don't worry, though. They don't accompany you to the bathroom or the shower, but they do stay close to you because
that's
they
good.
know you are someone who can feel their presence. Yeah, right?
Well, that's good.
They know you are... Yeah, they know you are someone who can feel their presence and potentially pass along a message to their loved ones still here in the physical world, which makes sense. So, number 6, you are fascinated and obsessed with the paranormal, the afterlife, and anything to do with psychics, mediums, or angels.
So if you do a podcast on psychic development, does that fall into number 6?
I think that might fall into number 6.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Just checking.
We can check that one. Okay, so number 7, you are deeply spiritual and feel you have a calling from God or the universe to be a medium in this lifetime. That's if you accept it and not fear it. So yes. You could have that.
Yeah. And you're right.
Feel
that's calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both listen to psychic teachers. and we really enjoy their podcasts,
yes.
and we share their things on our Facebook page because, I mean, these ladies are amazing. But one
are.
of the ladies had a tragedy, and her husband was a police officer and been shot, and she had a premonition of this, and she was kind of, correct me if I got this wrong, Kim, on the fence about these gifts, and then she kind of basically prayed that, look, if you want me to use these gifts and help my husband and blah blah blah, and I will develop these abilities. And that got her on the path. He survived.
Right.
So she basically said, look, if you want me to do this, you need to let me know. And I probably got the whole timeline different, but yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Right.
So you have to let go of that fear, and you have to decide, look.
And it is a good podcast.
It is a good podcast. But you have to let go of that fear and just basically, look, this is me. Okay. But you're going to need to connect with God, the universe, whatever you wish to call it, and get your mediumship, like you said, going in this lifetime.
The next is number 8. Your senses heighten like crazy when the lights go out. As a kid, maybe even now, you are terrified of the dark. This is because our senses heighten when the lights shut out and our eyes are closed. Oh, yes. Lights
Especially
off, dark to the bed.
Especially growing up in a haunted house.
Yes, that didn't help matters any.
No, it did not.
You had to keep your feet up off the floor as quickly as you could, jump in the bed, and make certain your feet weren't hanging off the edges. Because you knew something was going to be reaching up and grabbing you if you were too close to the edge.
To this day, I can't sleep with my feet uncovered. They gotta be covered.
I am not discussing a childhood nightmare, not at all. Or a childhood occurrence.
Okay.
Nope.
No trauma.
Yeah. Whew. That's another story. Another podcast, even.
That's another podcast.
Okay, number 9. Yes. Yeah. You can talk to animals and believe that animals deserve the same amount of love, kindness, and respect as human beings. When I mean talk to animals, I don't mean literally, but literally. And I mean telepathically. You know what animals are feeling. You can sense their pain and their joy. You know what they need. It feels like instinct to you. You just know.
Well, I treat them better than people. Better
Yes,
than human
you do.
beings.
Yes, you do.
I do. I'm sorry. I do it. Guilty.
Nothing to be sorry about there. They need love too.
Yes.
Okay, so number 10. When someone passes away, you feel a strong connection to them, even if they were not a family member or friend. You may not have even met them in the physical world, yet you still feel a deep connection. That's why funerals are very hard for me.
Yes, because the deceased are there.
Yes, they are.
And they like to play with the lights.
They do like to play with the lights. Oh my gosh.
It's always the lights. It's like the new trick. It must be the easiest trick you learn when you transition. Because it's always a light somewhere in the funeral home is flickering.
It's energy.
I know.
Everything has energy. It's the energy. Happened at Mom's.
Yes, it did. Very dramatic when it did.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, number 11 is when you meditate, you see different faces flash before you. These faces are often those of people who have passed and who are dropping into your awareness to get your attention. I don't know that I've experienced that.
The faces?
I don't think I have. Yeah, the faces flashing right before me. I don't know that I've experienced that.
I was talking to someone from work who we haven't talked in like 5 years, which we work in the same building, but, different shifts and everything. And you just don't see some people sometimes. And he had a dear friend that passed away, young guy. His liver shut down. We know from what Mom went through, that's not really the way you want to go if you have a choice.
Right.
With your
right.
organs shutting down, and that's normal. I mean, that's a normal way of passing, but he had passed away. It was a roommate. It was like a little brother to this person. And I've been communicating with this person off and on for like 2 weeks. And every time I keep getting, the guy that passed away keeps bothering me. And his name comes into my head. And I said, okay, I know you're here. I get it. You're messaging back and forth with someone who doesn't know you're a psychic. You're just like,
Oh,
I just can't bring you up. So you're going to have to wait, because it was, he kept coming forward. And finally, this person said, hey, you said you do a podcast. What's your podcast on? I'm like, well, okay. We might get to talk about you.
Opening.
So, went through what the whole podcast is about, and, what we're doing, and what our plan is here, and how we want to help people grow their abilities and just grow our own in the process. And I said, oh, by the way, I don't want to say his name, so I'm going to give him a fake name. Okay. I'm just going to say Stan. So Stan says he's trying to show himself to you on more than one occasion. Have you seen him? And he goes, oh yeah, I've seen him with this grin on his face. And I said, oh good, because he's been trying to show himself to you. I said, so are things like getting moved and not in, because I'm getting on my end, I keep moving stuff around. So I'm like going, so I'm like, are things getting moved? Because this is a conversation that's happening via Messenger on Facebook. So it's not like a one-on-one conversation, although I'm having a one-on-one with Stan,
right.
But it's kind of like, okay, so are things getting moved or misplaced in your house? Are they being put in the wrong place? Or he laugh out loud kind of thing. And he says, oh my gosh,
yes.
Stan used to do that all the time. He would never put anything back where it belongs. I said, is it still happening? He goes, well, yeah, it is. I said, well, he's still doing it. He's just trying to get your attention. And so it was just kind of like, okay. And then, there was one other thing that was kind of personal that I relayed. I talked to the person today, and they were like, because this was yesterday, I gave them the Stan messages and everything. And I told me Stan was leaving and that he loved you, but he's no longer talking to me anymore. And he told me today, well, nothing got moved today. And then he got home from work, and Stan's hat was sitting on a speaker, and evidently it was turned around backwards. So, so Stan was letting him know, I'm still messing with him,
Still here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get this, so I get this message. Well, Stan moved his hat. I moved it back and said, now you never wore your hat that way. So, and what I felt,
well, at least he's open to talking to him.
Yeah, and he said he's talked to him before because he's felt him around. He's felt him. Yeah, he says he's felt him a couple times. So he has spoken to him. I didn't tell him that the more he interacts, the more interaction he's going to get. I figured he'd figure that out. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah. But that's good to know that the more that you do communicate with an entity and respond to them, the more that they are going to interact with you. I think that's why some...
Well, yeah, because they can hear
Right. And I think that's why
they know you can hear them.
And I think that's why some people don't want people to cross over, because it's almost like a relationship. But, there's a difference between, and we're going to get into another podcast, of course, a difference between a ghost and a spirit. Mm-hmm. One's afraid to cross over or refuses to cross over or doesn't know how to cross over. They get lost. And one has crossed over and comes back.
Psychics tune into the energy of people or objects by feeling or sensing elements of their past, present, and future. Psychics rely on their basic sense of intuition and psychic ability to gather information for the person being read. Mediums take it a step further. A medium uses his or her psychic or intuitive abilities to see the past, present, and future events of a person by tuning into the spirit energy surrounding that person. This means mediums rely on the presence of non-physical energy outside of themselves for the information relevant to the person being read. Mediumship is making connections with and delivering messages from people who are no longer living to those who are still here. Information is received primarily and directly from the dead. With using their psychic abilities, mediumship is making connections with and delivering messages from people who are no longer living to those who are still here. Information is received primarily and directly from the dead, spirit guides, and angels. There are different types of mediums with different abilities to connect with those who have passed on. Mental mediumship involves the psychic connecting with their consciousness directly with the spirit in a telepathic bond and speaking what the spirit is saying through them, which is what you did with Stan, correct?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
And then there's physical mediumship, which involves the use of physical energies, allowing a spirit to inhabit and take control of their bodies. This is a form of channeling, which is different from possession, where a dark entity attempts to violate a person's boundaries through force to control them. Let's look at two types of mediums and their abilities.
I'm going to stop you right there.
So
I'm going to interrupt right there.
Yeah.
Big time.
Okay.
I think it's very important that people understand the different types of mediumships, because I think everybody thinks it's the physical mediumship where you've got something to inhabit your body, and that's what's scary.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's very important
Yeah.
to point out the differences of these two types of mediumships, because when you have the physical mediumship, the manner way you speak, everything changes because you are channeling energy through your body of the spirit.
Right. This totally foreign energy to you.
Right.
Is coming in to your body.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're allowing this to happen. I think that's where the fear factor, I mean, because I'm not a physical medium. No, do I have the capabilities to do it? I don't know, because I'm not open to that. But I'm doing good with.
Yeah.
I think it's key to know that you can be, if you have mediumship skills, you can do the mental mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you're comfortable,
Right.
you can start to delve into, learning how to channel safely and learning how to make those connections protected and safely.
Yeah. Protected and safely. That is
Yes.
so important.
Yes.
Because you got to be able to exercise that out of you or break that connection when you need to.
Well,
That's how I visualize it. That's why I get scared.
Well, it takes energy for them to speak through you. If you're channeling them, that's taking energy too. So it's going to be a very limited time period that you would actually be channeling someone.
Okay.
I didn't research time periods for this, but I mean,
Oh, me
I would
neither.
say definitely not an hour, because that's a lot of, I've been listening to
lot of
research.
energy.
Yeah, I've been like Edgar Casey, which is very well-known psychic medium, and he'd lay on the couch and his readings were always about 20 to 30 minutes long, and he would end it abruptly. We're done.
Oh, okay.
We're done here.
Oh.
And that would end the session. So
would he say that because the energy would leave and then he'd be done?
or that's what was being said before they ended, that the person that was talking to him ended it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. But it was really
Gotcha,
interesting because
okay.
every time he did a reading, he was a Southern man. He has the Edgar Casey School in Virginia Beach, I think it is, and a Southern boy. But when he was channeling, he spoke almost biblical. Thou, thus, didn't sound like didn't sound like a Southern boy at all, So, and that could have just been his guide communicating with the spirits for him. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Interesting.
the periods lasted about 20 to 30 minutes and they were done. Poop.
Gotcha.
And most, like when you go to most psychic fairs and stuff, they usually have a time frame that's about 30 minutes. I think when I had my reading, it was 30 minutes, when I was communicating with Mom.
Yeah.
So that one was 30 to 45 minutes, and 45 minutes was the max for her.
Gotcha. Okay. I imagine that would be so draining.
Yeah.
But that's another story, right?
Right.
Okay, so with the mental mediums and their abilities, they have clairvoyance, which we know is clear seeing, which they can use to see disembodied spirits and or spirit messages through their mind's eye. Some describe it as similar to a movie playing in their mind. This includes seeing auras. And I believe movies in the mind is something that you do. You get, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes,
yeah. Sometimes I see a photo, like a picture.
Okay, gotcha. And then there's clairaudience, which is clear hearing. This is where the medium can hear spirit voices communicating with them, which includes spoken thought, music, and singing. I think we've both had all that.
Yes.
Probably all of that, yeah. Clairsentience, or clear feeling, involves the medium's sensing of a spiritual presence. They may feel a spirit's touch or pick up on an ailment the soul suffered while that soul was alive. Clairalience, or clear smelling, is where a medium might smell a scent such as roses or a favorite perfume of someone who has died. I have done that with cigarette smoke and a couple of other things. Do you get that? The clairalience?
I get some. I think you have more clairalience than I do, because I do have a bad sniffer. From
this.
So when I smell it, it's usually pretty prominent. And I've had it where I've smelled stuff and no one else is smelling it at the same time. I'm just kind of, okay.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
Then they use clairgustance or clear tasting. Tasting comes in when a medium is given a literal taste of something, such as a once favored food of a spirit, like grandma's hot chocolate.
Right.
Would you like to add anything to that part of the mental mediumship there?
No, I think we've ticked quite a few boxes on that one.
Yeah. Now, the physical mediums and their abilities, this one I found fascinating.
Yeah, I was looking at number 1. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the number 1 is levitation, in which inanimate objects lift into the air on their own, or the medium's body levitates.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never tried to levitate anything. Never thought about it. What about you?
Well, I have tried to make a pencil roll on a table.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be the same thing, maybe. I tried to make it move at least, thinking about it.
Did it move?
Focusing on it. I'd like to say it moved on its own, but left brain coming in says it could have been the wind or vibration or something.
Was it windy in your house?
It's a pencil. Yeah, well, it could have been, exhaling a breath could do it, I cannot legitimately say that that's truly happened, but that's interesting.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah. The next one's automatic writing, where the medium holds a writing instrument on paper and relinquishes conscious control to allow a spirit to write its message through them. Now, Ouija boards is another form used in this way, which don't touch it if you don't know how to shut it down.
Correct.
Just saying.
Yes. Now, automatic writing, I do.
Right.
I hadn't thought about it as a physical medium ability.
But it makes sense that it is.
Yes.
Raps as in knock, 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 tend to be used by spirits to make audible rapping noises to answer yes or no questions or acknowledge alphabet letters to slowly spell out messages.
Saw that on Ghost Hunters.
Yes. Yep. Once for yes, twice for no. Ectoplasm, where the medium's bodily substance is mixed with an etheric substance, which enables a spirit to affect physical matter and can be seen by the naked eye. So this is goo or slime that is created through the medium's and the spirit's matter coming together and forming a goo that you can see. I've never seen ectoplasm before.
Only on,
Only
Ghostbusters.
On
Yeah, only on Ghostbusters. It's like, Egon came to mind when you said ectoplasm.
Yeah, exactly. And I probably didn't explain that properly, but that's more or less what it is. It's slime. Materializations, in which the materialization of a spirit can be seen in its once human form, as in ghosts. They are sometimes seen in seances, but can be seen by anyone, anywhere, anytime. They can also appear as orbs, which we've seen both of those, orbs and full body apparitions.
Yes.
And channeling involves allowing a spirit to inhabit the medium's physical body to speak through them. The medium's expression and voice may change significantly to resemble the spirit inside them, which, oh, wow. Don't change my face. No. Sorry.
You digress.
I digress.
Yes.
Spiritual mediumship is another one. This form of mediumship is the reception and delivery of messages from spirit. Messages are received using clairaudience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, and clairsentience. The medium then delivers and physically translates those messages into the physical form with words. Messages are usually delivered through speaking or writing and with support from physical divination tools such as oracle cards. Now, that's what you do as well. You've done spiritual mediumship.
Yes. I didn't know it was called that, but yes.
Surprise.
Yeah, we got a name for it.
Yeah, now it sounds like I'm going to be repeating this next one, but it's physical mediumship again. This form creates a physical phenomenon. It can include table tipping, noise making, levitation, smoke billet pictures, or scrying. As you mentioned earlier, it is to see or stare. It's a technique that uses energy, smoke, and soot to receive message from spirit. So you see the images in the smoke.
Yeah, I think with scrying, you just basically stare until you just become in a trance-like state.
Yeah.
And
then
then you start to see. Yeah.
Right, right. And then the rest of we've already discussed as far as the ectoplasm and the physical medium and the spirit work together. They work together to create and produce a physical phenomenon. Physical mediumship includes face changes, voice changes, and apparitions. There's energy mediumship. This form of mediumship is bringing the divine light energy of spirit through your body to transform yourself and others. This is called laying of the hands in Pentecostalism. Energy mediumship also refers to forms of energy sending, like in Reiki and shamanism, which I found that very interesting.
Yes.
That the laying on of the hands in the Pentecostal religion was this energy.
We don't.
work that,
Some Reiki practitioners call what they do laying on hands, so it's kind of interesting. I've heard some interviews with some Reiki practitioners on podcasts where they have referred to it as laying on hands.
Oh, that's interesting.
I found that interesting.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So then there's channeling mediumship, which is much like spiritual mediumship, except rather than connecting with many spirits, the medium connects with only one spirit or the same group of spirits time and time again. Channeling mediums allow their mouths and hands to be used to deliver messages through speaking and writing. Message and delivery happens almost simultaneously in the channeling mediumship. Many channelers feel they are allowing their body or voice to be taken over by the spirit whom they are channeling. Now, that's what that YouTube video you listened to with Esther and
Abraham Hicks.
Abraham Hicks, yes.
Yes.
That's what that channeling
that's
is.
what they do. Yes.
That's what they do, right.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now, another important distinction is that while psychic readings often focus on predicting future events, mediums primarily tune into past and present issues that we've talked about before. Predicting the future, while it is sometimes helpful, runs the risk of disempowering people. Always remember that you do have a say in how your future unfolds. So despite what any psychic or medium may say, in your future, you always have free will. And that will can absolutely redirect your course and create the life you want by changing your thoughts and actions. Psychic information is often great insight into what potentially could happen based on the road you are currently traveling. And it could be used only as a guideline to help you make the best choices for yourself. So just remember, if you get a future prediction from someone and it's something that you may not like, you have free will to change things. Future is not set in stone. Just as in any profession, mediums have specialties and areas of expertise, which you've seen in this different psychic conventions and such that you've been to, how they do different things and stuff like that.
Right.
From time to time, it may be helpful to seek out the counsel of someone objective for guidance or connection with spirit and or to gain a clearer read on your life. If a psychic, medium, or any other intuitive healer speaks to you, I encourage you to set your intentions and then simply go with the flow. Spirit will guide you as to who and what is in your highest and best good in that moment. Remember that no one knows you better than yourself, and no one has a closer connection to your deceased loved ones and spiritual guides than you do. By learning to go within, listen to, and trust your own inner voice, you gain access to everything you'll ever need to know. So what do you think, Carrie?
I think that's very good advice. If you've never had a psychic reading before, I think that people go in with a certain mindset. And you just have to be open to what you may want to know one thing, but maybe that's not the message that they have for you. Maybe there's something more important that you need to hear. Be open about listening to what they're telling you. Don't try to make it into something else. I think sometimes people do that. So, it's always recommended to record a session So you can go back and listen to it later or take notes so you can reference it later, because after you're done, you're going to walk out and there's so much that you're going to forget.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd always recommend recording your session. So I go back and listen to one I did a couple months after Mom passed away, just to, because there's pieces I forgot and pieces I missed, or maybe I wasn't supposed to hear that yet.
True. Yeah, right. That would make sense. But of course, Hollywood has made it to be this life-altering, life-changing, They make it like you're supposed
like
to
Hollywood.
go in. It's not like Hollywood.
Yeah.
You go in and just be open-minded, I should say, and just listen. I assume you can ask questions, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't want to go in and give a lot of personal information, because you want an honest psychic reading.
Right.
But you do need to give the psychic something to go on. You know what I'm saying? When I had I've had the same person do multiple readings on me. She'll just start out with, like, the very first time, she's like, oh, your grandmother's here and her sisters. And they're all talking at the same time, which was normal. That's what they did.
Normal.
And I'm like,
That's
yep.
what they did.
You didn't know who to answer or what was being said to you, because all three had to talk to you at the same time. And so I was
Exactly.
like, oh, yep, you do have my grandma. That was
And they got louder.
Yes. But, and earlier we talked about the medium is given enough information to confirm who's here.
Right.
And that was the information, that was what they gave her. And that was enough to confirm, yep, my grandmother and my great aunts are here. Yes, you're correct. She started out, all I had to do is give her my name. And that's kind of what popped in. I didn't go to her for specifics on this particular one. This is my first reading with her. It was a 20-minute reading. And, she's like, okay, nobody on your father's side's coming forward. They're all like staring at me and quiet. I'm like, yeah, that would be normal. Okay.
That's normal.
Again. Yeah, that's right on target. So it's kind of like you got to kind of just be open to what is told to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because mine was just a very open reading, because I just wanted a reading.
Yeah, exactly. Now, was that your very first reading?
Oh, yeah. That was my very first reading.
Very first one. You never had one with anybody else before that?
No, correct. And what's funny is, this was a 2-day paranormal convention. So she comes by the next day and she's standing at my desk and her necklace just breaks. I'm like, well, good thing I sell jewelry. I'll get you another, so I got her a chain for her necklace. And then a little bit later she goes, and so I've already paid for my reading. That was the day before.
Right.
And she comes over and she's like, okay, now they're singing and they won't stop. And I'm like, what are they singing? And I'll fly away. And that's one of my favorite hymns. It's one of those things when it's one of those lifting songs that lifts me up.
Mm-hmm.
If I need a lift me up song, that is it. And so they were singing it. So the reading went on. They had a live one. They weren't letting her go. We continued to communicate with her throughout the event.
Yep. Just leave me alone.
Which would be normal. That would be normal for them.
Yeah, that would be.
So Kim.
Yeah.
I thought it might be fun. Of course, Google searched famous psychic mediums, and you get all sorts of people when you do that, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Lots
but
of
I
people.
came across, yes, some I knew, some I didn't know. 8 famous figures who believed in communicating with the dead.
Ooh.
So I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with the spiritualism movement and when it started, but the popularity of spiritualism waxed and waned throughout the 19th century and the first decades of the 20th century, and surged on the heels of major wars and pandemics. While belief in an afterlife is a cornerstone of many ancient and modern religions and cultures worldwide, the idea that it's possible to communicate with the dead never reached the same level of acceptance. But for a period of about a century, beginning in 1840s, sending messages between human and spirit worlds was popular not only as a religion, but also as a pastime. Though a few 18th century European thinkers toyed with the concept of potential connections between science and the supernatural, the new religious movement known as modern spiritualism got its start in upstate New York in 1848. That's when 2 sisters, Margaret and Kate Fox, became locally and later internationally famous after claiming they could get in touch with people beyond the grave. For some, the work of mediums like the Fox sisters was purely entertainment, but for others it became a religion and is still practiced as one of a few remaining communities today.
Interesting.
Spiritualism popularity waxed and waned throughout the remainder of the 19th century and the first decades of the 20th century, predictably surging following massive losses of life like the Civil War, World War I, and the 1918 flu pandemic. And although the spiritualist movement never completely faded out, it didn't hold the same appeal after World War II. But for close to 100 years, spiritualism attracted people from every part of society, including celebrities.
Neat. Interesting. What are they? Who are they? Tell me more.
Who are they? Okay, we have 8 famous figures who at some point in their lives believed it was possible to communicate with the dead. Number 1, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison invented the phonograph in 1877. The first record he created was his own voice reciting the nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Then in 1920, he announced plans to capture a different type of voice, one that belonged to those no longer living, specifically a spirit phone capable of talking to the dead.
Wow, that's interesting.
Aside from life, yeah, I know, the first ghost radio,
Yeah.
spirit phone. Aside from life-changing feat of breaking through the veil, it was believed his interest in spiritualism was simply to demonstrate that science, not mediums or Ouija boards, was the way to do it. So he kind of had a try to prove it's science kind of thing. Some believe Edison's supposed belief in communication with the dead was a joke or a chance to make headlines and capitalize on the spiritualism popularity. That's according to one person, who adds that this is certainly possible, but at the same time, Edison did have an unusual hypothesis regarding what happens after humans die. The inventor spoke of his belief in the idea of life units. In a nutshell, 100 trillion of them make up a human being and keep us functioning. When we die, the life unit moves onto someone else.
Oh, that is interesting. So he was trying to make the left brain of it all.
He was.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2, Mae West. After experiencing severe abdominal pains while performing in Chicago in 1929, writer, activist, and star of the vaudeville stage and silver screen Mae West, then age 36, believed that her relief finally came at the hands of a spiritualist leader named Sri Deva Ram Sakhu. I'm sure I didn't say that correctly. A collection of West's papers from 1928 through 1984, housed in Harvard University's Schlesinger Library, contains clippings, correspondence, and pamphlets related to her involvement with spiritualism, including Thomas John Jack Kelly, a well-known medium who became West's spiritual advisor and friend. The archive also features papers documenting West's multiple trips to Lilydale, a spiritualist camp outside of Buffalo, New York, where she would visit Kelly for readings and healing. This included a stay in the summer of 1955 when West was on hand for the July 3rd dedication of a new healing temple in the community.
Well, that's interesting. That surprises me. I didn't expect Mae West to be on that list.
Well, what about Queen Victoria?
Well, I kind of knew about Queen Victoria. But why don't you share it with the listeners? They may not know.
The modern spiritualism has been around since the 1840s. It gained substantial traction in the United Kingdom once Queen Victoria became interested in the practice. Distraught over the 1861 death of her husband, Prince Albert, Victoria entered her mourning period, which lasted until the end of her life in 1901, and involved wearing all black, as well as mourning jewelry, which contained photos of Albert and locks of his hair. Mm-hmm. It also included attempts to get in touch with Albert in the afterlife. Not long after Albert's death, a 13-year-old medium named Robert James Lees claimed the prince had gotten in touch during one of his seances, saying that he had a message for the queen. Upon hearing this, Victoria arranged a seance with Lees, during which he referred to information no one else would have known, most notably a pet name he had for her. Mm-hmm. The teen performed numerous seances for the queen at Buckingham Palace before turning over his mediumship duties to another medium. He explained, Victoria continues holding seances at the palace and is well known to seek her dead husband's advice in politics.
Yep. I knew about that one. Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, let me see if I can stump you with this one. How about Sir Arthur Conan Doyle?
Yeah, that one kind of... Tell me more.
Well, obviously, he's best known as the creator of Sherlock Holmes.
My favorite
in the late
stuff.
19th, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, he was also known as one of the best-known spiritualists. The writer believed firmly in the powers of many mediums and was even convinced in the existence of fairies after a couple of teenage girls faked some photos. It all started with Doyle joining a seance in 1880. Though he was initially a skeptic, he gradually became convinced that it was possible to communicate with the dead, and in 1887, letter to Spiritualist Periodic Light, Doyle wrote that it was absolutely certain that intelligence could exist apart from the body, and that, after weighing the evidence, I could no more doubt the existence of a phenomenon that I could doubt the existence of lions in Africa. His interest grew much stronger after he believed he heard a personal message from his son. Doyle's son Kingsley died from pneumonia contracted after being seriously wounded in the 1916 Battle of Somme. Doyle ended his touring Europe and America to preach the wonders of spiritualism and the afterlife.
Wow.
Doyle's fervent beliefs eventually strained his friendship with famed escape artist and illusionist Harry Houdini, who saw spiritualism as a con, and spent years debunking the alleged communication that occurred during seances and exposing mediums as frauds. According to Hartzman, who did this article, their relationship took a substantial hit after Lady Doyle claimed to have received a long-winded message from Houdini's mother, and Houdini refused to believe it. Despite Houdini's efforts to expose frauds, Doyle's belief never wavered. In fact, he even claimed a spirit named Phineas, who was thousands of years old, was his regular contact with him and his wife and advised him on such things as travel and real estate.
Well, that's interesting.
I need to talk to Phineas.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Now, having grown up in Illinois, everybody knows, I believe, that's from that area, that Mary Todd was a definite believer in spiritualism.
Definitely, yeah. Well, out of all
Yes.
the tragedies in
Yeah,
her life, yeah.
Yes. Well, she famously attempted to get in touch with her husband, President Abraham Lincoln, following his 1865 assassination. Her involvement with spiritualism began 3 years earlier when their son Willie died from typhoid fever at the age of 11.
Yeah.
Mary Todd initially attended seances as a way to cope with her grief, but found them to be so comforting that she started hosting her own. According to the White House Historical Association, there is evidence that Mary Todd held as many as 8 seances in the White House, specifically the Red Room, following Willie's death, and that the president attended a few of them. But what may seem odd today is quite common at the time. This is also an excerpt from Lucille Scott, who is a journalist and author of The American Covenant, a story of women, mysticism, and making of modern America, which that just sounds interesting.
Yes,
All on its own. We have to research that book.
Yes, it does.
Mary Todd joined the vast wave of Americans turning to spiritualism during the Civil War as the ghosts of fallen soldiers and both literal and spiritual ruin proliferated across America. She said, in the late 1850s, approximately 10% of the American free adult populace allied itself with spiritualism in some form or fashion, a trend that continued into the 1860s. However, the movement's popularity and widespread acceptance wouldn't last and soon faced backlash, including from the medical establishment. Doctors coined the term mediumania, linking insanity to its spiritualism and then redefining insanity symptoms as the most common side effects of entrancement: rigidity, seizures, ecstasy. But Mary Todd, by this time mourning both her... I know, we're going to make you crazy now.
Yeah.
You know?
You're just crazy.
But Mary Todd, by this time... Yeah, you're just crazy. Because we don't believe in what you're doing. So
Right.
We're just going to make you crazy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, by this time, Mary Todd, her time was now mourning both her son and husband, continued to attempt to communicate with the deceased members of her family. This, along with many deemed improper and unladylike displays of grief after the president's assassination. In 1872, both the Boston Herald and New York Times mocked Mary for attending seances to contact her late husband's spirit. Then in 1875, Mary's son Robert had her briefly committed to a sanitarium for her spiritualistic practices.
Oh, that's so sad.
Could you imagine? I mean, you've got spiritual gifts that you're born with.
Right.
And your son commits you to a sanitarium, and sanitariums were not where you wanted to be.
No, not at all. They were horrible places then. And now.
Yes. Now, I got number 6.
Okay.
And honestly, I did not know who this person was. So I'm like, who is this person?
I did not either.
Yeah, Victoria Woodhull. Best known for her, well, we weren't around in 1872, so I guess,
yeah. Uh-huh.
And obviously they don't teach us in history, but she is known for her 1872 run for the presidency of the United States as the first woman to do so in 1872.
Wow.
That's just amazing. She spent her...
Never knew it.
I know. She spent her lifetime blazing trails across multiple disciplines. From an early age, it's thought she believed that she received special guidance and protection from the spirits of the deceased, which empowered her to take actions unusual for a woman at that time.
Wow.
In addition to her candidacy for president, Woodhull was also the first woman to own a Wall Street investment firm.
Wow.
Found her own newspaper and spoke before Congress demanding that women be granted the right to vote. While her run for political office didn't end with her moving into the White House, Woodhull was elected president of the American Association of Spiritualism in 1871, calling it the chief honor of her life.
Oh, wow. Wow, I need to read more on this lady.
Yeah, I'm like...
Never even knew that. You weren't taught that in school.
Well, I know.
There was a woman that ran for president in 1872. Hello.
Yeah, that was groundbreaking on its own.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Number 7 isn't going to be a big shock to a lot of people. Dan Aykroyd.
Well, it might be, though.
You think so?
Because you're just thinking Ghostbusters.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But okay. Maybe no, you're just thinking Ghostbusters.
Yeah, me. Okay. I'm just thinking Ghostbusters.
Yes.
So there we go.
Yeah. So in addition to being a member of the original cast of Saturday Night Live, for those of us old enough to remember the beginning members, the original members of Saturday Night Live, the show premiered in 1975. Dan Aykroyd is closely associated with his starring role in, of course, what we just talked about, Ghostbusters movie franchise. In fact, not only did he co-write the script, but the idea for the 1984 film was his own. Mm-hmm. And Aykroyd didn't have the look far for inspiration. His great-grandfather, Sam Aykroyd, was part of a spiritualistic community in Canada, where he regularly hosted seances in the family's farmhouse throughout the 1920s and 1930s. In 2009, Peter Aykroyd, Dan's father and Sam's grandson, published a book called A History of Ghosts, which documents the general history of spiritualism as well as the Aykroyd's family role in the community, discussing spiritualism in a May 2020 interview with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Dan Aykroyd noted, "We believe, and I guess it's my religion, that you can speak from the other side and that consciousness survives."
That's neat. Now, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
about Dan Aykroyd, and I thought that was really cool.
Well, I mean, I didn't know that he was actually the creator of Ghostbusters.
Well, I knew that. I just didn't know the rest. Well, I knew Saturday Night Live, too. Those are the only 2 things I knew.
Yeah. That's what you're bringing to the table.
That's all I got.
Okay. Now we have number 8. Hilma af Klint. Klint.
Okay.
Although early 20th century artists, and now you've heard of Klimt, the artist, I'm sure, Klimt.
Mm-hmm.
Although early 20th century artists like Kandinsky, Piet Mondrian are largely credited with sparking the phenomenon of abstract Western art, a Swedish painter by the name of Hilma af Klint, it's Klimt, I'm sorry, Klimt, began creating similar, bold, colorful, and geometric pieces even earlier. Other than art, af Klimt had another major interest, which was spiritualism. In 1896, Helma began to hold regular seances with 4 other women who called themselves the Five. As part of their communication with the other side, the women began to produce automatic drawing channeled from the spirits. While Hilma was formally aligned herself with other spiritual movements, she continued to paint her spiritually derived subjects until her death in 1944. Some of Klimt's best-known works are part of the series called The Paintings for the Temple, sought to represent the transcendent pulsing realms we cannot observe with our senses.
Ooh.
She began painting the series in 1906 after spirits got in touch with her and the rest of the 5 urging her to take the project, and completed it in 1915.
Oh, wow.
The spirits told her that the paintings would one day be housed in a temple, which Hilma envisioned as she consisted with multiple layers of connecting with spiral paths. Just over 100 years after she finished the series, her works was featured in New York's Guggenheim Museum, a temple to the arts, for just such a design.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. I need to look those up and see what they look like.
Now, if this is the same Klimt who painted, was a very well-known painter. There's The Woman in Gold, I think is what the movie's called, and it was a recreation of a true life story. Mm-hmm. But she had painted this woman using gold leaf around. Mm-hmm. It painted her face, and then we had gold and images around it, and it was a very was a very sought after painting. It was a painting that was owned by a Jewish family that was stolen from them by the Nazis.
Oh no!
So it's very interesting.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah, wow.
In Austria, they lived in Austria.
Wow, that is neat. Well, not about that.
Anything else you want to add to this, Kim?
No, it was just very informative. Whenever I did my research, there was a lot of information, a lot of questions, but I had a lot of answers too. So I found it fun.
Well, hopefully we did bring some clarity to the difference between a psychic and a psychic medium.
Well, it brought clarity to me. So.
Well, good. Then our work here was done.
Our work is done.
Yes.
No, seriously.
Well, I guess that concludes this episode of Psychic Bent.
Yeah, it was a fun one. I'm looking forward to the next one, though, which is the chakras.
Yes, we're going to go into the 7 of the chakras. There's more than that, but we're just going to delve into the 7 main chakras. And so that should be a very interesting episode as well.
Yeah, I have been finding that one extremely interesting as well.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, if you enjoyed the episode or have any comments or questions, you can reach us on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast, or Kim
at our email address at psychicbent1@gmail.com.
We look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
May your light shine bright.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to Psychic Bent. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.